Okay, so one of the things that kind of is a standard way of approaching something is to look at it from a micro view or a macro view, which is a large scale view, and then hone in on the more specifics. So let me ask this question. What is more micro and what is more macro? The property lines or the front porch? Which one of those would be a macro thing and which one would be a micro thing?
Front porch is micro.
Front porch is micro. Property lines deals with the overall site. That's macro. That's bigger, right? You guys understand that? Does that make sense? Okay. So in architecture, what that often translates to is that we start with site design as the very sort of initial thing that we do. We start thinking about the building in its relationship to the site around it. Okay? And one of the things that I want to show you guys about your site is we have a model of it right here. Okay, and I'm going to turn it this way. All right, and I want you guys to notice these lines that you see going around that create all these like layer cakes. This is called a topographic model. Okay? These lines are called contour lines. In reality, unless you were looking at a rice paddy in Southeast Asia, right? Hillsides don't look like this, do they? So you can imagine if I took clay and I just sort of smeared it and it filled in all those surfaces, that might look more like a real hillside. But we have to do something in architecture to quickly build a model, and that is done through contouring and just showing it as a step topography model. Okay? So this is an approximation of reality. It's not the real thing. The real deal would be smooth. There would be no little lines everywhere. Okay? What I want you guys to be aware of is that your site plan, and I know the camera is probably not going to be able to see it, but you guys know that it's there, right? Your site plan contains these contour lines, right? So what I want you guys to do is, let's take a look at these contour lines right here. See how they look like kind of upside down V's? You see that? So when I move this over, do you see the upside down V's here? They're right there, right? So those lines represent something in depth. Okay? Now, one of the things that you got to be aware of is this thing called contour interval. Okay? And so contour interval is how far is it vertically from one line to the next. I think on this map the contour interval is 1 foot, but I'm not positive. I'd have to double check that. But a lot of times you won't have a model like this to look at. You'll have a drawing like this, and it'll have numbers on the contours, or it'll tell you the contour interval is 1 foot or 2 feet or something like that. Right? And it's up to you to kind of extrapolate what that means. If you have a 1 foot contour and the lines are 1 foot apart, what slope do you think you have? 45 degrees. So you have a line, right, and a line, and another line, and let's just, for the heck of it, say they're doing that. And so if these are 1 foot apart, if we were to cut a section through it, what that would look like would be like this. Step, step, step. Okay? So if they're 1 foot apart and the contour level is 1 foot, it's a 45-degree line, right? And so you got to understand that the closer the lines get together and plan, the steeper the slope. The further apart they are, the lower the slope, the flatter the slope. Okay? Any questions about that? So hopefully you guys can understand what the plan is that you're looking at in relationship to this model. So one of the things that I want to ask you is did you guys notice that this part is flat? That this part of your site, when you look at that model, that part's flat, right? looking at this, that's this part right in here. It doesn't have a slope, it's flat. And that's where you're working, that's where you're going to be building. Okay, does that make sense? You also notice that there are trees, right? How tall might a big tree be? Not a big tree, let's just say, you know, like some of the trees that you see around our campus, the roundish ones. 10 feet? How tall would you say the ceiling is?
Well, I mean, like, you didn't say that tall, like 10 to 14 feet.
How tall would you say the ceiling is?
About 20.
This ceiling right here is about 15. Are most of the trees outside bigger than the ceiling? Yes, they are. So a typical landscape tree, a good sized landscape tree, not a huge one by any means, and not a tiny one, they're going to be somewhere between 20 and 35 feet tall. How big is your building? 30 feet tall, right? It's 30 feet wide, 30 feet deep, and 30 feet tall. So if there's a 30-foot high tree in front of it, can you see the building over the tree? You can't, huh? So what I want you guys to note is where there are trees on your site. Okay? And you guys received a context drawing that shows this site in relationship to the village down below in the parking lot, right? The parking lot's down about where you are, or maybe further where you are, way down the hill. So if there are big trees here, right, can you see a building if it's here from the parking lot? Who has their box that I can borrow? Someone absconded with mine. The one I made last week? It's gone. I think somebody said, The box that's about like this big. Huh?
5% discount.
Yeah. Ah, very nice. Okay, so
7 minutes.
7? Okay. So at this scale, that's 30 feet. And at this scale, some of these trees are taller than the building. So if you're down the hill, approximately where this young man is right there, can you see this building if there's a big old tree right there and another one next to it and another one next to it? You can't, right? So then you have to understand the relationship of these elements to the building. Okay? Those are things that deal with site design. Let me see. Let me look at my notes and see what else. All right, so go ahead and stop that video.